Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I've got some interesting news today. There's a story from the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity that I definitely want to cover, but there's also a new survey that was released by CNN that I find rather interesting, so I'm going to start the show with that, and then we'll get to the commentary from Ron Paul that apparently nobody really wants to be the Secretary of Defense, and I can't say I really blame him. But first, I've got a story here from thehill.com that says half of the public would blame GOP lawmakers for a government shutdown, while only 1/3 would blame President Obama. This according to a CNN survey that was released today. 13%, meanwhile, said Republicans and the president would both be responsible, while 2% said neither should be blamed or said they had no opinion. A plurality of people polled said a government shutdown that would last a few days would be a major problem. Just under a quarter said it would be a minor problem, and 20% said it would be a crisis. Now, you might remember there was a government shutdown in October of last year that lasted approximately 16 days. And why are people being questioned about a government shutdown? Because I've certainly not heard any of the fear-mongering in the news about a government shutdown. Well, apparently, according to the article here from The Hill, Congress has just 10 more days to pass a new spending bill, or the government could shut down again. Conservatives have been pushing GOP lawmakers to defund Obama's immigration order through the appropriations bill, and the House GOP conference is expected to debate its next step in a closed-door meeting tomorrow. Let me go back here. There was something that I had skipped. I missed a complete paragraph here. It says, among the political parties, 82% of Democrats would blame Republicans for a shutdown, while 10% of Democrats would blame Obama. Just over 60% of Republican voters would blame Obama, and just under a quarter would blame members of their own party. More independents would blame Republicans than they would the president. And while it's not really anything new to blame, is it Congress's fault or the president's fault that there was a shutdown? It's the same old blame game that goes back and forth. But what I find to be very interesting from this survey are some of the favorable, unfavorable questions that they ask, as well as some of the other ones that I'll skip down to in just a moment. But it's more about, I actually forget what it's about. I've got this horrible short-term memory problem where I read it 10 minutes ago and now I forget it. But I know that it's in here, but they have these favorable, unfavorables, and I want to make sure that I don't lose my place on these. So they ask, do you find President Barack Obama favorable or unfavorable? 48% said favorable, 51% said unfavorable, 1% had no opinion. 1% said they had no opinion. There is an asterisk indicating that like a minute or no percent said that they had not heard of Barack Obama. But what I find interesting is next on the list, Speaker of the House John Boehner. Apparently, only 28% of people that were surveyed have a favorable opinion of John Boehner. That's not what I find surprising, nor is it surprising that 46% have an unfavorable opinion. What I find surprising is that 15% of people who were surveyed said that they had never heard of John Boehner. Another 11% said that they had no opinion. And for comparison's sake, they go through and show some of the previous surveys that they've done. In October of last year, 10% had never heard of John Boehner. In September of last year, it was 9%. It's been as high as 45%, and that was in November of 2006, before John Boehner became Speaker of the House. Also interesting is that Senate Democrat leader Harry Reid, apparently 22% of people surveyed said that they had never heard of Harry Reid, and that seems to be somewhat consistent. October of last year was 18%. March of last year it was 27%. It has been as high as 37% in November of 2006. Some of the other people that they ask about favorable, unfavorable, Nancy Pelosi, that 10% said that they had never heard of, was as high as 29% in October of 2006. Mitch McConnell, 23% said that they had never heard of. That was as high as 42% in November of 2006. Hillary Clinton has a 59% favorable opinion rating from people that were surveyed. 38% find her unfavorable, and approximately 1% have no clue who Hillary is. 2% of people have no clue who Mitt Romney is. 48% don't like him. 43% find him favorable. And then they ask about, do you find the Republican or Democrat Party favorable? And here's the question that really interested me. As you know, and this is the wording of the question, I will read this without commentary. As you know, in the election, which was held earlier this month, the Republicans won control of the U.S. Senate and maintained control of the U.S. House of Representatives while gaining about 10 seats in the House. Do you think the Republican victories in the election are more of a mandate for Republican policies or more of a rejection of Democratic policies? And this is what I find to be very interesting. 16% said that it was a mandate for the Republicans. 74% said it was a rejection of the Democrats. 8% said neither. 2% did not know. And then for comparison's sake, CNN showed the results of a poll in 2010, 2006, and 1994 when there were similar shifts in the makeup of Congress. In 2010, they write, do you think Republican victories in the House races are more of a mandate for Republicans or rejection of Democratic policies? 17% said mandate, 70% said rejection of Democrats. In 2006, it was 64% that said that the Democrats taking over the House was a rejection of the Republicans. There's a little bit more from this when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Bitcoin Not Bombs is a launching pad for nonprofits and social entrepreneurs into the financial freedom of the Bitcoin economy. Bitcoin Not Bombs offers premium publicity campaigns designed to facilitate an organization's adoption of Bitcoin as a payment system. Bitcoin Not Bombs is fully committed to being the hub of the nonprofit sector of the Bitcoin economy, maximizing the potential cross-promotion of all our clients and commercial partners. To learn more, visit bitcoinnotbombs.com. Hi, I'm Darryl W. Perry, and I need your help to take Peace, Love, Liberty Radio on the road. In the spirit of Motorhome Diaries and Liberty on Tour, I intend to take the message of peace, love, and liberty on the road. I intend to leave New Hampshire at the conclusion of the New Hampshire Liberty Forum and return at the beginning of PorkFest. During the 104-day trip, I'll be visiting at least 10 cities across the country, speaking to people about the ideas of peace, love, and liberty, while continuing to produce daily Liberty media. Pensacola, Florida, Austin, Texas, Sedona, Arizona, and Denver, Colorado are already on the map. If you have a college group, a local Liberty on the Rocks, or other Liberty meetup that you'd like me to visit, you can possibly add your event to my calendar. To find out more about the tour or to donate, visit tour.fppradio.com. That's tour.fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. Before I get back to the article, or actually I'm reading some of the survey results from the CNN poll that was done, let me tell you about Liberty.me. Liberty.me is a social networking site, a publishing site. There's chats, there's like a Reddit type thing to where you can put in news and upvote, downvote. And, you know, it's like a news aggregator sort of thing. It's a great way to share news with people, especially if it's from some rather obscure websites that people might not find on their own. And again, like I said, it's a social network is the primary thing, but there's also publishing. And I publish, or actually I republish pretty much everything that I write on Liberty.me. And sometimes that winds up getting more views than on my regular website, fpp.cc. And one of the things that's great about Liberty.me is you don't have to worry about the trolls, and you also don't have to worry about somebody exploiting your data, because Liberty.me is run by Liberty people, and Jeffrey Tucker isn't going to exploit your data. He's not selling your stuff to advertisers because you're not the product. Liberty.me is the product. You are paying for Liberty.me. With Facebook, you're the product. The advertisers are paying for you. Liberty.me, you're paying for Liberty.me. So you get the added benefit of your data isn't exploited, and you know, for the most part, Big Brother's not going to be watching you at Liberty.me because they're not going to be paying a subscription, which means that you have the added benefit of keeping away the trolls. So head over to Liberty.me. If you want to sign up, use referral code FPP Radio, and you save $5 a month. That's referral code FPP Radio at Liberty.me. So let's go back to some of the results here from the CNN poll that was conducted earlier this month. And I was reading the question about whether or not the Republicans taking over the Senate and adding to their seats in the House was a mandate for Republicans or a rejection of the Democrats. And again, CNN, for comparison's sake, and that's actually what they have in big bold letters, says for comparison. And then they show results from 2010, 2006, and 1994. And it's pretty much consistent that whenever one of the parties winds up taking over power, it is seen not so much as a mandate for that party. The highest that received was in 2006, when 27% of people said that the Democrats taking over control of Congress was a mandate for the Democrats, while 64% said that it was a rejection of the Republicans and George Bush's policies. In 1994, remember that big, the Republican Revolution of 1994? Well, only 18% said that that was a mandate for Republicans. 60% said it was a rejection of the Democrats. The next question that they have, do you think it will be good for the country or bad for the country that the Republican Party will be in charge of both houses of Congress, the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate? 44% said it would be good for the country. 50% said bad. And again, let's go back to 2010, 2006, and 1994, when 52% said it would be good for the country in 2010. 50% thought it was good in 1994 when the Republicans had that revolution. And in 2006, only 67% thought that it was good for the country, which means it's an uptick of about 15 to 17% from 2010 or 1994. And it's actually a good bit higher than what they're saying this year. And there's actually more people this year that are saying that it would be bad for the country. In 2010, it was 39%. In 2006, it was 24%. And in 1994, it was 26%. The next question that I thought was very interesting was a question about more or less gridlock. And this seems, again, it seems to be somewhat the same from 1994 and 2006. It says, as a result of the Republican victories in this year's election, do you think there will be more gridlock between Congress and the Obama administration, less gridlock between Congress and the administration, or there won't be much difference? 52% said more gridlock, 37% said no difference. In 2006, and the reason 2010 isn't in here is because in 2010, the Republicans didn't control both houses of Congress. They took over the House, but not the Senate. So they have to go back to 2006 when the Democrats took control of Congress, but Bush was still president. 56% said more gridlock, 26% said no difference. And again, that's pretty much within the results of this year. And back in 1994, 52% said more gridlock, 28% said no difference, and 15% in both 1994 and 2006 said that there would be less gridlock. So there's a bit of a difference on whether or not people think there would be less gridlock, but on average, the majority of people polled said there would be more gridlock with a mixed, federal government where Democrats control one area and Republicans control the other. And then they have a question about whether Barack Obama is doing enough to work with the Republicans. I don't really care about that question. And then they've got questions about, this is actually what I covered in the story from the Hill, about whether or not it would be a crisis if the government shut down. But let's go back to one of the questions about whether or not it's good for the country that the Republicans will be in charge of the U.S. House. And I don't think that it will be, because you've still got politicians controlling Congress. You've still got politicians in the executive branch, and politicians want to politic, and part of politicking is telling people how to live their lives. But when you look at this in conjunction with the question of whether it's a mandate for one party to wind up gaining control or a rejection of the others, it's very clear that a vast majority of people see one party taking control as a rejection of the other party. And half of the people are saying it's bad for the country that the Republicans now control Congress. When are people going to wise up and realize that it's bad for the country to have Republicans and Democrats in Washington, D.C.? When are people going to realize that it's bad for everyone to have Washington, D.C. even be a thing? There's more when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Hi, I'm Darryl W. Perry, and I need your help to take Peace, Love, Liberty Radio on the road. In the spirit of Motorhome Diaries and Liberty on Tour, I intend to take the message of peace, love, and liberty on the road. I intend to leave New Hampshire at the conclusion of the New Hampshire Liberty Forum and return at the beginning of Porkfest. During the 104-day trip, I'll be visiting at least 10 cities across the country, speaking to people about the ideas of peace, love, and liberty, while continuing to produce daily Liberty media. Pensacola, Florida, Austin, Texas, Sedona, Arizona, and Denver, Colorado are already on the map. If you have a college group, a local Liberty on the Rocks, or other Liberty meetup that you'd like me to visit, you can possibly add your event to my calendar. To find out more about the tour or to donate, visit tour.fppradio.com. That's tour.fppradio.com. ExpressCoin is the best choice for buying Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, and more. ExpressCoin prides themselves on their customer service, so much so that the back end on the website should allow them to be even more focused on your needs. Get your cryptocurrencies with money order, check, wire transfer, or cash deposit. Get started at expresscoin.fppradio.com. That's expresscoin.fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. So before I get into the story here from the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity, I want to make sure that I tell you about the FANS program. FANS are friends, allies, and Numeri supporters, and you can join the FANS program for as little as $3 per month or any amount of Bitcoin per month, thanks to the recurring payment options from Coinbase. And if you sign up using the recurring payment option from Coinbase today is the final day for this offer, because Coinbase does this really cool thing to where whenever you offer discounts through your merchant services, then all of the subscription services are also discounted the same amount. And because I've got a 20% sale going on at the Bitcoin shop, because today is Cyber Monday, then anyone who joins the FANS program today, and this would be the only payment that winds up getting a 20% discount. Normally it's a 5% discount. But if you sign up today, your first donation to the FANS program, you save 20%. So, what better reason to do it than you're saving money? So fans.fppradio.com is where you can go to learn more about the FANS program. One of the benefits is getting the newspaper in your mailbox every month, and the newest issue will be coming out this week. So you will get that either on Saturday or early next week if you go ahead and join the FANS program. Again, fans.fppradio.com. So the article here from the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity, written by Ron Paul himself, says it seems nobody wants to be Secretary of Defense in the Obama administration. The president's first two defense secretaries, Robert Gates and Leon Panetta, both complained bitterly last month about their time in the administration. The president's National Security Council staff micromanaged the Pentagon, according to statements they made at a forum last week. Former Secretary Gates revealed that while he was running the Defense Department, the White House established a line of communications to the Joint Special Operations Command to discuss matters of strategy and tactics, cutting the Defense Secretary completely out of the loop. His successor at the Pentagon, Leon Panetta, made similar complaints. Last week, President Obama's third Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel, was forced out of office after complaining in October that the administration had no coherent policy towards Syria. Now, remember, I reported last week that Chuck Hagel was leaving, but I did not know at the time that he was forced out. That came out a couple days later, and I never really had the chance to bring that back up during the show. But now that we're talking about it, I will bring it up and say that, had I known he was forced out, I would have said it at the time. I did not know. Again, I found out a couple days later, but now we know. And as the saying goes, the more you know, something. I forget exactly what it was, but you remember it was on the Saturday morning cartoon things, and at the end it was G.I. Joe. So I'm not trying to get all militaristic or nationalistic, but now you know, and knowing is half the battle. That's the statement. Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The article here continues. He did have a point, he being Chuck Hagel, while claiming recent U.S. bombing in Syria is designed to degrade and destroy the Islamic State. Many in the administration continue pushing for regime change against Syrian President Assad, who is also fighting the Islamic State. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Martin Dempsey, has spoken out in favor of further U.S. escalation in Syria and Iraq, despite President Obama's promise of no combat troops back to the region. Shortly after Chuck Hagel's ouster, the media reported that the president favored Michelle Flournoy. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce the name. I've never seen nor heard this name before. It's spelled Flournoy. So I'm just going to call her Michelle. Michelle F., let's say that, was the first, she would have been the first female defense secretary, but more tellingly, she would come to the position from a think tank almost entirely funded by the military-industrial complex, the Center for a New American Security, which she founded in 2007, is the flagship of the neocon wing of the Democratic Party. The center has argued against U.S. troops ever leaving Iraq and even endorsed the Bush administration's doctrine of preventative warfare. The center is perhaps best known for pushing the failed counterinsurgency doctrine in Iraq and Afghanistan, called the COIN Doctrine. The COIN Doctrine was said at the time to have been the key to the U.S. victory in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now that the U.S. is back in Iraq and will continue combat operations in Afghanistan next year, you don't hear too much about COIN or the victories. Michelle F. turned down Obama before she was even asked. She is said to be waiting for a Hillary Clinton presidency where her militarism may be even more appreciated. With the next Senate to be led by neocons like John McCain, a Hillary presidency would find little resistance to a more militaristic foreign policy. So, President Obama cannot keep defense secretaries on the job, and his top Pentagon pick is not interested in serving the last stretch of a lame duck administration. There is bickering and fighting within the administration about who should be running the latest U.S. wars in the Middle East and elsewhere. Here is one thing none of them are fighting about: the U.S. policy of global intervention. All sides agree that the U.S. needs to expand its war in the Middle East and that the U.S. must continue to provoke Russia via Ukraine, and that regime change operations must continue worldwide. There is no real foreign policy debate in Washington, but the real national security crisis will come when the militarism finally cripples our economy and places us at the mercy of the rest of the world. Written by Ron Paul, the man who was labeled a kook when he ran for president in 2008 and 2012 as a Republican on the policy of non-intervention, don't bomb people around the world, let's take care of taxes, cut taxes, and I love the quote from Ron Paul that says, when I say cut taxes, I'm not talking about 1 or 2% here. I'm talking about bringing the tax rate to zero and getting rid of the IRS. We need to have more people that are willing to stand up and say those things. And luckily for you, I am one of those people who is willing to stand up and say those things. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Make sure to share the episodes with your friends on the Facebooks and the other social media.